Hi, guys, it's Brooke here. I have a super quick favor to ask. When you have a moment, please take just a second to give this podcast a 5-star review. This will help me to continue the podcast and continue to bring these resources to the community. Thank you so much for that 5-star review.
But even if you can't access an art therapist, art as therapy is valuable. Art as therapy is valuable and it is helpful. And even if you don't have a witness, that process is important for you. Go for it without a witness, without that. But I'm sure that you can still find your village and your support in your community, just creating art. And don't be afraid to create. There's no wrong way to create art.
Hey there, it's Brooke, and welcome to Finding Hope on the Spectrum, where I have heart-to-heart conversations with parents, professionals, and autistic individuals sharing personal insight and life experiences. Together, we dive deep into supports, programs, and stories that offer inspiration, insight, and most importantly, hope for the neurodiverse community. Before we begin with today's topic, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. And if you know someone who this would be helpful for, please pass it along. Remember to always stay curious, be kind, and have an open heart. Okay, so welcome back to Finding Hope on the Spectrum. I'm so excited about today's episode. We have three guests today, and you're in for a real treat with this one. And today we're going to be talking about art therapy, and this episode is such a meaningful blend of professional insight and real life experience. So first, we're going to be joined by Christine Kiki Haddad Zenoun, a board certified art therapist and RDI certified consultant who has worked with children and families across the globe. From New York to Cairo to San Diego, Kiki brings a unique perspective on how art therapy can open doors to connection, communication, and growth for individuals with autism and other developmental differences. And I've personally known Kiki for many years and so excited to have her with us today. And also, we're going to be hearing from a very special mom, Debbie Zimmer, along with her 22-year-old son, Ben. And we're going to have them share their personal journey with art therapy and any other therapies they'd like to share about the challenges, the growth, and really what's made a difference along the way. And I've also known Debbie and Ben for many years. So this is very exciting to have this conversation. So welcome, both of you.
Thank you for having me and us. We're excited to be here.
Fantastic. Well, let's start with you, Kiki. Why don't we go back and kind of talk about what drew you to art therapy from the beginning?
So my story is a long one, but we don't have that much time, so I'm going to shorten it. I'll give you the highlights. The foundation really started in the way that I was raised, and that my parents always taught me that the most valuable thing you have to give is your time above capital, assets, food, whatever it is that you have to share. Your most valuable thing is time. And my parents really put their money where their mouth is. And they raised me to volunteer and give a lot of my time, even at a very young age. And when I was 8, I had a very powerful experience, an aha moment where the connection was made that, like, wow, my time really is the most valuable thing, and I cannot support people and change their lives if I'm not physically investing my time in them. And I always really loved being around children and giving, it was orphans at the time, orphans, abandoned children, my time and spending time with them and bringing them comfort and joy. And more specifically, this orphanage that I would visit had some children with different developmental needs and special needs. And I found myself really, really super drawn to them more than anything else, and just really comfortable there, very at ease. Like, I felt like this makes sense. It's just so intuitive. And at the time, I'm 8. I don't really understand therapy and art therapy. So my vision at 8 was, when I grow up, I'm going to make art and painting for children like this, and I know that some need, intuitively, I just knew some need a lot of stimulation. So I'm going to build these bright, big installations and art pieces, and some need a bit more calm. So I'll do like the more calm paintings for them. And when I got into undergrad, my undergrad is in art and psychology, and I sort of pieced the two together. And I remember I went home, researched it, and I was like, oh, art therapy is a thing. And I went to my mom and I'm like, I'm going to be an art therapist. This is it. This is what I want to do. My mom went, hallelujah, you found it. She was very careful not to push us in any direction. She wanted us to truly find what we wanted to do and what we loved. And she was so excited. And it has always been it. This is it. This is the only thing I've ever wanted to do.
Oh my gosh, amazing. What a beautiful story. I've never heard that story. That's amazing. It's definitely what you've been meant to do, and it's a gift that you have and that you give others, and it's fantastic. And I just think that's so meaningful. And I think when we do what feels so intuitively right, then we're in the right place.
Absolutely.
And when you kind of fast forward, you also became an RDI consultant. And I'd love for you
You're
to
to
talk.
blame.
I know. I saw that vision. I saw it loud and clear. You were meant to be an RDI consultant too. I'll never forget it. And so, thinking about that role, and we've talked about RDI quite a bit on this podcast, and there's definitely plenty of episodes to listen in if you want to learn more about RDI. But today we're mostly talking about art therapy, but how did becoming an RDI consultant shape or deepen your work as an art therapist?
So what drew me most to RDI was that the approach really focuses on parent involvement. And from my work as an art therapist, I would have children or families come to me and I'd do all this amazing work and I'd see a lot of progress and I get so excited, and then I'd bring them back or bring the kids back to their parents and I say, oh, we're working on this and I see progress here. And the parents would tell me like, oh, well, but we don't see this progress at home. And I'd ask them, okay, well, what are you doing at home? This is what I'm doing here. And I'm telling you about this because I want you to also do this at home and so give the same or similar supports. And there was always this disconnect. It's like, I'm sending my child off to the professional because they know better. And there was always this feeling in me that's like, well, you're the professional of your child. You know way more than me about your child and what your child needs. And so when I started learning about RDI, I was like, this is the missing piece. And what I love about how you can bridge the two together is that, creating art with your child, especially younger children, is just a really fun and authentic way to create emotional connection and learning. And there's a lot of discoveries that you can make just in the art process. And in RDI, we focus so much about the process and not the product. And I think that's a really big overlap that we have with art therapy, that it really doesn't matter how the art ends up. It's just about engaging in the materials and trying something new and coming out of your comfort zone, or just expression. Or Debbie and Ben will talk more about this, I'm sure, but also developing your body, developing more physical skills, like being able to hold a brush, being able to move your neck so that you can look at your artwork that's really, really big. Or sometimes with Ben, we tried, standing, getting out of his chair to be able to reach the canvas that was larger than him. So there's a lot of opportunity for growth in so many different ways that goes beyond just creating a piece. And it's a really beautiful way for families to connect and to explore and to have fun together as a team and to learn about each other as well through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I know there's a lot of misconceptions about art therapy, and you've taught me a lot about those over the years. And, for those that haven't heard about art therapy or think that it's like an art class, like an art lesson, what would you want to share with them? What do you think are the biggest misconceptions?
I think the biggest misconception is if I'm painting or I'm creating art and it relaxes me, I'm doing art therapy. And there's definitely therapeutic value in creating art, but there's a really big difference between art as therapy and art therapy. And the biggest difference really is that with doing art therapy, you have an art therapist that is trained. We are mental health professionals. We're therapists first and foremost. And we are there as guides and as witnesses to what you're creating. And the other big misconception is that and this happened a lot. I remember when I was in my master's degree, like my friends would say like, "Oh, I'll draw you a drawing, and you tell me about my personality." And it's not like our therapists are what's the word yeah, our therapists are not fortune tellers. It's not like I'm reading your palm and I'm going to tell you about your future and your past. That's not what we're looking at when we're looking at art. We're here, again, as witnesses. We're here to observe a lot of different things, and not just like the creation of your art, but the process and how you're engaging with the materials, what you're leaning towards, how your body is reacting to the materials and to the experience. And we're there just to observe it and to sort of bring it to your attention, because maybe this is something that you weren't aware of, or this means something to you that I just want to bring to the forefront. And like an example would be, sometimes when I want to get to know a family and their family dynamic, we could do an activity called Draw a Fish Tank. And in that process, I'm not looking at like, you, what are they going to draw in the fish tank? Are they drawing sharks? Are they like an aggressive family? Or it's not about that, but it's about, okay, so is there someone that's in charge? Is there someone that takes a lead role? Is there someone that's hoarding all the materials? Is there someone that is afraid to engage? Is there someone that's, just drawing in their little corner of the fish tank? It's about the dynamics at large with engaging in the whole process. And again, we're here as witnesses just to sort of bring your attention to it and open up a dialogue and open up a discussion, because there is still a really big foundation of talk therapy in art therapy. But sometimes it's intimidating to just sit in front of someone without a buffer and talk about these big experiences, like life experiences or family dynamics. It can be intimidating, and sort of art can somewhat act as a buffer, but also a little window and a stepping stone into where the conversation might go.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And for those of the people that feel like, well, I'm not artistic or creative, what would you say to those people, and if they're considering art therapy?
Well, again, it's really not about the outcome. It's not about the art. Our goal isn't necessarily to create exhibitions, although sometimes it does lead in that direction. But there are so many modalities and mediums in art. There's Ben is a wonderful example. Ben, he's visually impaired. He's physically impaired. He is in a wheelchair. He communicates with a device. There's a lot of physical limitations to Ben, and Ben creates art. And it's beautiful art. It's expressive art. It's wonderful. It's very moving. It's very emotional. But then, even if you don't want to paint, you don't like to get dirty. That's information for the art therapist, by the way. But, we can use so many different materials. You can use collage is a form of art. Photography is a form of art. So there's lots of different mediums. Even fiber arts, crochet, knitting. That's still art. That's still creation.
That's fantastic. I'm glad you mentioned that. That is, there's so many different mediums to art, and you can really individualize it then for each person that you're working with. And, how would you say it's different from recreational art?
Again, I think the biggest foundation is that you have a witness that's there to sort of guide you in making discoveries. And sort of, again, we're not fortune tellers. We're not trying to decipher the code in your art, like, oh, you drew the tree in this way in this corner of the painting, that means that you have this relationship with your mother. That's not That's not the goal at all. But sometimes recreational art is just, I need to get this feeling out, and that's the end of it. But with art therapy, it we, we want to explore that feeling a bit more, right? It's not just it's out there and we're moving on, but we want to sit in it. We want to think about it. We want to observe it and make space for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what do you think is going on in the brain and the nervous system during art therapy?
Ooh, I love that question because that's actually what my thesis was about. So it's really beautiful how the brain and the nervous system and the body are so interconnected. And first of all, the first thing that happens is regulation, right? And even in talk therapy, a lot of the times when we find that our patients and our clients are kind of static and they're having a hard time engaging, one of the first strategies we try is like, let's go for a walk, right? Because you're pumping blood around your body, you're sort of dissipating the tension, and it allows your body to regulate. And when your body is regulated, your brain can really focus in on what it needs to focus on. And art creates a similar sort of experience because that movement when you are creating art is very regulating. And again, it can sort of shift the focus away from whatever tension you might be feeling in your body to, the process of, well, I need to cut this image out and put the glue. And then there's this regulation that happens with, especially with art, with repetitive movements. And that's why fiber arts are super regulating, like knitting and crochet. It's a lot of really repetitive movements. So your body is physically regulating because there's a lot of blood that's moving. And it just helps your nervous system really calm down and be able to then think about the tough questions of what am I struggling with in a calming way.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that movement is so key. I've had so many guests on this podcast talk about how incredibly important movement is. And, whether it's in nature or, like you said, taking a walk, but that makes so much sense with the movement of art and how that can be so regulating. And I think it provides such a wonderful focus that's meaningful and makes the individual more available to connect and to share. And so let's talk about kind of how this applies to autism and special needs individuals. Why do you think art therapy especially is so powerful for neurodivergent individuals?
I've worked mainly with individuals on the spectrum, but during my master's program, I had to sort of dabble in other populations. And it is so powerful, really, with everyone, really for the same reasons, where it's, I want to express something, but I don't have the language for it, or I feel scared to communicate it. And I feel like that's something that a lot of neurodivergent people might relate to, where it's, I just don't have the language for it, or this emotion is too large, too confusing. And one really wonderful example that I always think of when I'm thinking of that is even a friend of mine did a documentary called Art Therapy, the movie. And he followed a lot of different populations. And there was one section of the documentary where he was in a cancer ward, I guess, in a hospital. And I think it was people in treatment, still in treatment. And this woman created an image, just cutting and pasting images from magazines. And she found this big picture of a cliff, and then she drew herself right on the edge of the cliff. And she goes, "This is what it feels like to get this diagnosis of like, I don't know what's at the end of the cliff, and they're telling me you have to jump. Like, I don't know, out of this treatment, is there a safety net? Is there not?" And that's really powerful. That's you can say like, I'm scared, but that doesn't do it justice. And that's what she said in this document. Like, I can say I'm scared, I can say I'm terrified, but that still doesn't do it justice. But when I show you this image that I create, that feels more accurate. And I think that's one thing that a lot of families with neurodivergent children really appreciate about art therapy is it's another way to communicate and to express things that are so powerful and beyond comprehension and large and especially complicated and difficult for children to understand or people on the spectrum to understand. Emotions are very complex.
Absolutely. Yes. And when we're dealing with autism as well, it's more complicated and understanding that sense of self and I can imagine. And I think another big piece I would love for you to speak on is the sensory piece because there's so many challenges with sensory with individuals that are on the spectrum. And, how does that come into play with art therapy?
So that's a really good question. And again, like I know we're talking about individuals on the spectrum, but it's something that we have to really consider as art therapists for every population. And there's just like there's a large spectrum on the autism spectrum, there's a large spectrum in art in terms of sensory fluidity and movement. And I'll give you an example. On one end, there is black marker on white paper, which is super firm. And then on the other hand, there's like watercolor on the other end of the spectrum. One is super solid and static, and one is super fluid. And depending on the needs of our clients and their physical needs and their sensory needs, we might choose one material over the other. So with Ben, who we've been kind of working on building his muscle tone and encouraging him to sort of lean on his spine a bit more, use his spine a bit more, use his neck, use his arms, open up his upper body, open up his chest. We're trying to make it physically easier for him to create. So we're giving him spray bottles with water and watercolor, which is super fluid. So it doesn't take a lot of physical effort to create, right? But it is still very fluid, so it's giving him input and stimulation. On the other end of the spectrum, there might be individuals that are needing to be super grounded. They need a lot of physical input. And so with them, we might work with clay, which is, you have to put a lot of effort into it to make it kind of work for you. And still, we're working on muscle tone, we're working on physical control, but on another level, we are really considering, is this the material giving the physical input that they need to be regulated? Going back to regulation, it is movement and the different art materials can be super regulating. But if I'm giving watercolor to a child that is overstimulated, I've given them too much input in the wrong direction, right? And so that's not going to regulate them. So we also have to consider the physical needs and the physical abilities of our clients, and that's how we sort of choose the materials and the direction and the purpose of what we're doing.
This show is brought to you by Therapeutic Approach to Growth. Therapeutic Approach to Growth helps families with relationship and behavioral needs. Their holistic programs are individualized to honor and respect each family and their autistic son or daughter's sense of self through programs such as relationship development intervention, naturalistic ABA, and animal-assisted services. If you're finding yourself frustrated or discouraged with your current behavioral programs and would like to see more long-term meaningful growth for you and your family, then contact TAG today at www.tagforgrowth, that's TAGFORGROWTH.com, to learn more about how to schedule a consultation or how they can offer you the help your family needs, whether in person, remotely, or in a school setting. Again, that's www.tagforgrowth.com. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And so you're really planning ahead and thinking about the materials for each individual client and to set them up for success and and probably also I would assume what's meaningful for them too. And I know that you also work a lot on communication in your sessions. And I'd love for you to speak to that because it can be so varied, as we're going to learn. And when Debbie shares and Ben shares as well, communication can come in a variety of ways. And I'd love for you to kind of just speak on that and what that looks like for your clients.
It can be so varied, especially with working with individuals that are neurodivergent and on the spectrum in general, is that, communication comes in so many forms and people communicate in different ways. So Ben uses a talker and that's how he communicates. And so where you might not necessarily be having a quick back and forth conversation of how he's feeling in the moment, but later, and this is where we really overlap with RDI, Debbie and I continue to work on, what is he going to name this piece? And that's something that will maybe come later when he's looking at it afterwards or reflecting. Or sometimes the communication is just, encouraging Ben to pick the color that he's really interested in and to express that and to communicate that, as opposed to us making the decision or assuming for him, or just handing it to him, really inviting him and encouraging him, giving him the opportunity to say that. And then, on the other hand, with those that are more verbally expressive, maybe during the process, they'll share like, well, this is how I'm feeling, or this is what this means to me, or this is what I remember. And we can have that conversation during the actual process of creating art.
Yeah. And it's just so meaningful. What I love about it is it's such a meaningful way to work on communication. And, in that point, there's that internal motivation, which we really strive for. And so I just love that aspect of it. And, I imagine that it also builds a lot of agency and independence too. And it would be great to kind of touch on what that looks like and some examples that you've seen in your clients increase in their independence through your therapy.
I think a lot of my work tends to lean a lot of its efforts towards like physical capabilities and building physical strength and organization and sort of executive functioning and planning. And especially with the younger children, I like to involve them in setting up the materials, cleaning up the materials. And that's part of our process too, is how do you, if you're, tactile defensive and you're dealing with something that, is uncomfortable for you, how do you physically cope with that? And building that tolerance of this state I'm in, or the materials I'm dealing with are making me physically uncomfortable, but I'm learning how to manage that. I'm learning how to cope with it. I'm learning how to deal with it. And then also, especially individuals that are that have physical disabilities, physical limitations, we can work on things like lifting weights and going to the gym and building that muscle tone. But then we can also work on squeezing a bottle of paint that could be really hard, or squeezing a spray bottle like Ben was doing a lot. And it's different because it doesn't feel like exercise, but it is. We're still engaging these muscles. We're still building those muscles. But there's that component of motivation. I'm really motivated to express myself through art. I'm really motivated to build this creation and to put this image that I have in my head out for people to know what's going on inside of me. And so I'm exercising. I'm really pushing myself, but it doesn't feel like it. And it's not presented in that way either. So I've seen a lot of my clients over the years literally physically grow and become more physically capable, which is it's heaven to me.
Yeah, I love it. Fantastic. Well, I mean, that's such a good way. We're going to, I think you've done such a great job of sharing about art therapy and the benefits of it and what it looks like. And I'm so excited to have Debbie come on now and kind of share and bring it to life as well with her son. And we're going to bring Ben in. Ben has prepared a share in advance with his device. So I'm super excited about that. And so we're going to go ahead and pause for a second and bring Ben in and then pick up and have him share his side of this experience working with Kiki through art therapy.
My name is Ben Zimmer.
Brooke, what's your first question for Ben?
Ben, I would love for you to talk with us about what it's like to have art projects in your life.
That's a good question, huh, Ben? Would you like to share with us on your AC device?
My art. I love to do art projects with my friends. Sometimes I am not so good. I say, no, no, feel mad, stop, or I feel bored, frustrated, afraid, hurt. Then I choose my colors to paint. Like red, yellow, blue, pink, or purple. I pick my tools to use. I take my time. I move when I am ready. Now I feel calm and happy. I can give my art as a gift of love. I can sell my artwork and spend my money at the store, or I can keep my art just for me. Tell me what you like about art.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ben. That was so meaningful. And I love your art. I love art, but in particular, I have so enjoyed the artwork that you have created over the years. It's fantastic. And that was such a meaningful share. And we're gonna have Debbie share just a little bit more about the work that went in with Ben and the opportunity that he had to put that together. We had him plan in advance so that it could be prepared for today. But I'd love for Debbie for you to just to share a little bit about kind of what went into Ben creating that message for us today.
Yeah, it's a little challenging for Ben to kind of speak in the moment with his device because it's very lengthy for him to put together phrases.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
over several weeks during when he was creating his art, before and after, we would talk to him about some things and he would answer with his words. So I just took those words and just strung them together to complete the sentences and had it on his device so he'd be able to share in the moment this morning with you all. And the fun thing is his art instructor that he has in the community now, they'll be heading over there soon. So he's got art on the brain already this morning. And
Perfect.
Now he has this phrase in his device to where if anybody in the community asks him about, his art now, he'll be able to share that. So
I love it. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it really brings it to life. I love how authentic it was and meaningful it was for him. And, just really showed the value of, the art experience that he's had.
Yeah. And Kiki was kind enough to send him a message as well with her voice to talk to him on his phone to kind of prep him. So he was in the mindset and they're ready to talk about art this morning. So I appreciate that, Kiki, too. Thank you.
Of course.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, let's talk about Ben. Let's share a little bit more about him and, what it was like before starting art therapy.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. Again, that's like Kiki said, a long story we're going to put into a very short little nutshell for everybody to hear. Art therapy sessions came in a very challenging time and Ben in our family's life. We were coming out of the COVID pandemic period, a time when Ben lost a lot of vital services and meaningful relationships. He had recently had yet another surgery with a painful recovery time, making it difficult for him to move, distrustful, hesitant, and quick to overreact. He was more withdrawn than he'd been in the past and anxious, harder for him to reach out with his hands and try new things, and really unsure of himself and, other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was such a tough time. And this is such another example of the impact that COVID had on our population that we serve and just how incredibly challenging it was. And for Ben too, with the medical challenges that he experienced. So what made you decide to try art therapy?
Actually, Art therapy came at the suggestion of our ABA and RDI therapists we had at the time. And we were told about the lovely Miss Kiki, who we're talking here with today, who was Ben's art therapist, that she was providing art therapy in our area through TAG, and that it might help him regulate his emotions and improve his self-esteem. And I knew he'd always enjoyed doing art at school, but many of his projects that came home looked like his one-on-one aides had to complete most of the work for him themselves. And I just knew Ben had more to say through his art, and I wanted to give him that chance.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that you did, because he's created such amazing art. I know we have one up in our office and it's stunning, and we're gonna include some in our social media reels so that our listeners can see his art. It's beautiful. So what changes did you first begin to notice?
That's a good question, because when you first say that, I'm thinking, oh, should I respond about Ben in this? And really, I found myself wanting to respond for me, because honestly, the first change I noticed was in myself. As I observed Ben's art therapy sessions with Kiki, the way she spoke with him, her tone, how she respectfully treated him as a fellow artist, the ease in which everything seemed to ebb and flow when they collaborated together to create an art project, I realized without doing it intentionally that my own expectations and hopes and disappointments were interfering with my son's freedom to express himself and grow beyond where he was just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Not that it was my fault, but I just didn't know how to support him in the way that he needed. Both myself and others whom I've watched work with him in the past, in our eagerness to help, we were actually interfering a little bit with his self-autonomy and blocking his growth, I think. Kind of like makes me think about trying to break a butterfly out of its cocoon. He just needed to spread his own wings. So I think over time, I sat back and started relaxing myself during his sessions to enjoy the learning process, and Ben began to do the same.
I love that. I mean, it's so meaningful, and it's such a share, like it's such an important share, because it's an example of the impact that we have on each other. That, when as parents we're regulated and we're aware of our supports and the opportunities we give our kids, and our children are going to feel that, and it's going to translate into their decisions and their choices that they make. And I just love that you had that awareness and were able to then relax yourself and enjoy, through that process, sounds like you both enjoyed it even more.
Well,
So that's what a blessing. It's a one of those things that you don't necessarily know is going to happen when you're thinking of starting something like art therapy, and then this beautiful thing occurs.
it's so true. I thought it was just for him, and I really got a lot of benefit out of it as well.
I love it. It's so relaxing. I mean, it is very regulating, as Kiki was saying, and seeing somebody else enjoy art is very relaxing too, and regulating. So, there's just so much value there. And, was there a moment when you realize, this is really making a difference?
That's a really good question. Kind of makes me pause. But yes, I really think it was the first time he got to exhibit his artwork. It was at the Tag Client Art Show, and he was selected as the feature artist, as you guys had mentioned earlier. So his large canvas, and I mean large, acrylic painting entitled Strong, which he named himself, was on display and revealed to the attendings at the grand opening of the new therapy center. And that really launched Ben's art from a hobby into bringing him some community and giving him a real place to belong. Today, he attends local community art class every week, where he works with his private art instructor and collaborative art partner to kind of explore using different types of art materials and supplies that art therapy kind of got him started with. He's not rushed, and his choices are valued. I was able to really express to, the teachers in the community what works best for Ben that we learned through his art therapy. And just recently, Ben sold his third commission painting. So that was a big deal.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And last
Oh.
year, he even participated in our city's community art fair, where he sold his homemade pixie dust greeting cards that he made teamed with his service dog, Pixie. He's met some wonderful people through the making of his art and in getting to appreciate the art that they made as well.
Yeah. Incredible. I mean, just to hear the expansion from these art therapy sessions, to be going into the community, to be commissioned to do art, to be engaged, it is just really led to so many incredible things.
Yeah, it's really had a ripple effect that I didn't expect to happen.
Yeah.
Like Kiki had said earlier, I thought it was just going to be something he was going to go to, and then we would do something else. And it's really opened our life to different opportunities.
Beautiful. I'm so glad. I did not know that the next phase of your art journey, and I'm so grateful to hear that. That's fantastic. And so let's talk about how this, art therapy has impacted his confidence, and then we'll talk about his communication too. Art therapy impacted his confidence and then also his communication.
Confidence-wise, I've just noticed more and more over time just how proud Ben is of his art and his creations, and he's so happy to share his art with others. I mean, there's even just a different demeanor. Just even the way he holds his body, it just has more of a presence in it. And in his ability to communicate, I've noticed that it's improved his skills and his vocabulary usage on his AC device. And it gives him more ways to communicate through art by actually using his body and the feelings that he's having. And I really like this phrase I had heard, art is life and life is art. So I looked up who had said that, and I guess it was an American pop artist, Keith Haring, and he was speaking about his mission to make art accessible to everyone. That art and life really do exist together, and being human and being creative is kind of inseparable, because we've learned that a shared art experience opens up the opportunity to talk about anything and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that, it has really also impacted his well-being and just emotional regulation. Can you speak on those points too?
Yeah, it seems that it gives Ben like a positive activity that pushes him to use his visual motor skills in a self-driven way. It's really something he wants to do. And it gives him like that sense of well-being and safety that he doesn't always feel in other environments just because he's unsure of what's happening. And it's often hard for Ben to break out of negative feelings. Art always seems to guide him into that better headspace so he can move forward and settle down from overexcitement or fear that he might have been experiencing due to something, or maybe just overall how his body and mind is feeling for that day.
Yeah, that's really significant. I mean, we talk about quality of life and how important, that we, when we're focusing on things, that we're thinking about quality of life. And that's really what comes to my mind, that it sounds like this has really increased his quality of life.
Truly, truly.
Yeah. And your family dynamic as well. Let's talk about, I know you shared, what that benefit that you experienced when you started the art therapy with this journey with Ben, and how has it impacted your family dynamic?
Yeah, it really has. Myself and my husband, and Ben has 2 older brothers that now are grown and living out of the home. But it's now a means for us to see and talk about life together. It made the world around Ben come more alive and interesting to him. It's a way for us to connect. We see art everywhere and in everything we do now. Art's something we can share, and this has brought us closer as a family. We enjoy painting together and going to art museums. That was even started. Kiki had taken Ben to an art museum, and we kind of learned how to talk about the paintings with Ben and really pull him in to have discussion, like I said earlier, to communicate about different things. We love to point out colors we see around us, shapes and patterns in nature, like in our backyard garden or at the beach. What we feel in the words we say or hear, in the music we make together, playing instruments in Ben's band or listening to our favorite musician artists. We too are part of all this creativity and can take risks and make discoveries. And uh, we're finding it brings healing to others as well as ourselves in, just everyday moments.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And again, another testament to that shared experience and connection and just things that are meaningful to connect on. And I think that also is another way that, it really improves our quality of life to, just to be able to have those shared experiences and do it in a way that's so meaningful for everybody. And, what would you say to parents who might be unsure, whether this could help their child or they're considering art therapy, or maybe this is the first time they're hearing about it?
I've had parents say to me, I wish my child liked art, or my child doesn't like art. However, when I question them further, it seems like it's often the case that their child has only been exposed to maybe direct teacher led art instruction with short time constraints, and they've had very little freedom of choice in the creation of their own art. Or maybe they've been given no guidance at all, and they've never been encouraged to share or talk about their art, or haven't had the opportunity to try a variety of different art materials. Like Kiki said, some work and some don't, or there's preferences. And I love that in art therapy, the tools and projects can be adapted so that they can be accessed comfortably in a way that works for each child's unique mind and body needs. I would have never thought with some of my son's visual and physical limitations that he would have been able to really take some true ownership in his own art. It seems like he's learned so much more about himself and others through art therapy. And I would really just want to tell all the parents listening today what I feel like my sons taught me, that art is for everyone, and everyone's an artist. Even my child, even your child, even me, and even you.
Beautiful. I love that. You never know, the potential of our children. And, it's so important just to give them opportunity to grow and to explore and, to feel that, they have their opinion matters and they can express themselves. And I just think it's such a beautiful example of that. And I'm so grateful that Ben had that opportunity and that it's led to so many incredible things. So I just really appreciate you sharing, Debbie, today, and for Ben also to share with us today and joining us. And it was just such a beautiful testament to art therapy and giving our children amazing opportunities. And so I want to, yes, thank you so much, Debbie. And
yeah, thank you for
I want to
having us.
have, yeah, it's beautiful. And it's been such a wonderful journey with your family over the years. And just, you are really a testament to not giving up and to pushing through and to finding a way to help your child. And I've seen you and witnessed you do that over the years. And, he has had so many incredible experiences because of your determination and steadfastness. So,
And it's really something that we just can't do alone. It really does. They always say it takes a village, but it's really been true in the case of Ben, because everybody brings a little piece of themselves to share. And really, I don't know, it just gets our minds and brains turning to not give up.
that's right. Yep, that's the biggest thing, and that's, all what this podcast is all about is, creating hope and not giving up and understanding there's so many opportunities out there. And so I'd love for Kiki, for you to kind of wrap us up today. And, if a parent is listening right now and, feels overwhelmed, what would you want them to know?
What I would want them to know is, like Debbie said, it takes a village. And what I always want parents to know is that they are the professional of their child. They know their child more than anyone. No one will love your child or care for your child or do more for your child than you. And lean on your village and learn from your village and engage with your village. And more often than not, you'll find that everyone wants to help and to lend a helping hand. And, you know, what I want to echo what you said, Brooke, that, you know, Debbie is phenomenal. She's one of the best people I know ever in the world. I'm so impressed by you, Debbie. You are really an inspiration as a person and a mom. And part of that is because you ask for help and you learn and you try to better yourself. And you don't limit what you provide for your child based on, you know, an hour a week with a therapist. You bring it home, you learn it, you apply it. And that's why Ben is who he is today and is as capable as he is, because just like, you know, the foundation of RDI is that the parents are you know, the therapists. You truly are the professional of Ben. You know him better than anyone, and you have provided him you're so in tune to what works for him. And that's why I love working with you and collaborating with you, because you give me feedback too. And you say, well, I noticed afterwards he felt this way, so I think we should do this again. And we work well as a team. And I think that's another thing that where art therapy and RDI really overlap beautifully, is that when there's collaboration and teamwork within the whole family unit, that's where we see progress and a beautiful outcome, just like with Ben, which is it's inspiring.
Amazing. I mean, that is such a great way to wrap up, and it's so true. And I would encourage families to, you know, really let that sink in, that, you know, if everybody's enjoying themselves and connecting and sharing, you know, it gives us energy. It gives us, you know, motivation. It leads to other things. So, you know, keep that in mind. That's an important factor when you're deciding therapies. So, and I want Kiki to share, you know, how people can find you, and we'll include that in the show notes as well. And so go ahead, Kiki.
Well, you can find me through TAG, Therapeutic Approach to Growth, or it's tagforgrowth.com, correct? And in general, wherever you are in the world, there is a website for all the registered art therapists, board certified art therapists around the world. It's I should have written it down.
It's okay. If you don't know it, I will make sure to include it in the show notes as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, there's a Art Therapy Credentials Board website where you can go on and, you know, search your area and find the nearest board certified art therapist in your area. But, you know, even if you can't access an art therapist, art as therapy is valuable. Art as therapy is valuable and it is helpful. And even if you don't have a witness, that process is important for you. Go for it without a witness, without that. But I'm sure that you can still find your village and your support in your community, just creating art. And don't be afraid to create. There's no wrong way to create art.
So true. I love it. Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. This was such a joy to connect with both of you and Ben. Please tell Ben we appreciate so much, you know, that he was able to share today and join us. It was just such a blessing. So thank you both. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Brooke. Thank you, Debbie. Give Ben a big hug.
Thank you.
I'm dancing on the edge again. The wind is calling my name. I'm dancing on the edge again. This time I'm not looking back there. You can change me, you can tell me down. I'll leave echoes in every place I find. I'll break the mold.
The information provided on this podcast is for general informational purposes only. The content shared is based on the experiences, opinions, and perspectives of the hosts and their guests and should not be construed as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment recommendations. The discussions and topics covered are intended to foster understanding and awareness of autism therapies, but are not a substitute for professional medical guidance. Before making any decisions regarding therapies or treatments, we strongly encourage you to consult with a qualified healthcare provider who can provide personalized recommendations based on your unique circumstances. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge and agree that the hosts, guests, and producers are not responsible for any consequences, damages, or outcomes arising from the use or application of any information during the show.